Especially pronounced in the richest countries. Among the 38 OECD nations, most recorded between 7 and 10 marriages per 1,000 people in 1970. By 1995, this fell to around 5 to 7 marriages, and it continues to plummet today.
So why is this happening, and will it spell the end of marriage as we know it?
A stable marriage has often been associated with financial stability. Married households in the US hold significantly higher wealth than cohabiting couples or singles. But despite this, the marriage rate in the US has dropped by nearly 60% since the 1970s, and the median age for first time marriages has increased for both women and men.
For a variety of reasons, I think upper middle class Americans are just much more likely to be kind of intentional about sequencing their lives in terms of education first, work second, marriage third, and the baby carriage after all of that. And so they're just in a much better spot, both financially and relationship wise, when they go ahead and have kids.
The cost of marriage usually starts with a wedding. This is a tiny wedding cake I bought in London for $50, thankfully just within our production budget. But if you wanted the same cake, but big enough to serve 100 people, then you would have to pay at least $250. Add in the price of a venue, a tuxedo, a dress, drinks and music, and suddenly you're looking at a very large bill.
Getting married is just the tip of the iceberg. Starting a family adds all sorts of economic commitments. It typically starts with a house, followed by a car, maybe kids, which means more expenses like books, toys, and family vacations. In a nutshell, you become a fully engaged consumer in the economy. Some people choose not to go down this road, while others simply can't afford to.
From about 1980 to the present, there's been no greater increase in family instability than there has been among this working class demographic in the US, sort of in basically the second quintile of the family income distribution. I think there are a couple of big factors here in play. So one major factor, of course, is sort of the changing economy and the way in which working class men are less likely to be stably employed.
American adults from high income groups have maintained a stable marriage rate since the 1970s. But among the middle and especially lower income groups, marriages declined to 66 and 38% respectively by 2018. Since the 1970s, there has been a decline in the number of American men without college degrees in the US labor force. The last 50 years also saw their earnings stagnate and decrease.
By contrast, we're seeing women having a more secure footing in today's sort of more service post-industrial economy. And so we know that marriage is many things, but it's also in part a financial undertaking. And so when you have men who are losing ground financially in this working class demographic and women who are gaining ground, I think they both kind of see that the guy is less marriageable. And so they're less likely to kind of get married in the first place and more likely to get divorced in the second place.
Another phenomenon that affects marriage is the rise of secularism in modern societies. Here in the UK, for example, 1 in 3 people say they have no religion, up 25% since 2011. And this is a key reason why marriage is no longer the only basis for family formation.
In 2021, 51% of births in the UK took place outside of a marriage. 42% of children in the European Union and 40% of children in the US are also born to unmarried parents. For countries where this is acceptable socially, the decline in marriage does not necessarily spell trouble for the country's demographics. But in other parts of the world, most notably in East and South Asia, marriage and birth rates are highly correlated. Only 2.3% of babies are born outside of marriage in Japan, which means if people don't get married, they're also very unlikely to have children. This is a problem for Japan, the world's third largest economy and home to the world's oldest population.
The fall in birth rate is something that happens in many countries. Governments all over the world are worried because of economic implications.
From state-funded matchmaking apps to marriage support concierges, the Japanese government has introduced several incentives to promote marriage, but so far, nothing has worked.
There is this, financial constraint that people feel that they may not be able to support a family and raise children.
A similar problem is troubling authorities in neighboring China. which registered the fewest marriages in 2022 since public records began. The country also saw its birth rate fall to a record low the same year.
By 2050, China's working population will reduce by 10%, and not enough, babies born to fill that gap. And the, dependent population, those who reach retirement age, will double.
In a sharp reversal from its former one-child policy, the Chinese government encourages marriage and childbirth since 2016. But this time, it's Chinese women who have reservations about married life.
And the women tend to spend significantly much more time than their husband in childcare and other related care. And also the Chinese workplace is not very women-friendly. And why women don't want to get married, why women don't want to have children, is because this society is not women-friendly, the society is not child-friendly.
Men talk about the personal freedom that they get for not getting married, but at the same time, they are really worried that if they were to set up a family, they will not be able to sustain a family with the income.
The Western heart is closing in an important extent to marriage and family life. And that's going to have a huge impact, not just economically, but also obviously socially and emotionally on young adults today.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Speak Your Mind, the show here in Toronto that lets you, the viewer, give us your opinion, unfiltered, uncensored, obviously no bad words. But today's topic, we are talking about married people. We're talking about marriages. Why aren't people getting married anymore? Do you think it's something that has to do with the culture, with the society that we live in? You can give us a call, 877-785-8700. I am not here by myself, but I have with me Miss Audrey. Miss Audrey, good evening. How you doing?
Good evening, Pastor. I'm well, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Speak Your Mind. And as you've heard it, we're talking about marriages. A few people have already started to send us their comments, and I'd like to share with all of you. Ricky, that says like this: I honestly feel super lucky to not want to have kids and know that there are women who feel the same. It totally changes the dynamic for why two people want to stay together and allows two people to actually get to know each other. I know many people who got married because of kids and it wasn't the answer. We also have Phoebe that says like this: having left a bad marriage about a decade ago, I have mixed feelings about this topic. My own experiences with marriage leads me to say good riddance, but the hopeless romantic in me still clings to the idea that marriage could be a force for good in the world. So there we have it, a few comments just to start off our program, but we want to hear from you. Let us know, send us a message to our WhatsApp, 437-233-9815, and we'd share here on our show.
Thank you so much. Now, in my most unbiased opinion, even though it's kind of me already speaking my mind, I just ask all of you, especially here in Toronto on the East Coast, when winter comes, would you prefer to be snuggled up with your pillow or with the person that makes you smile? It's that simple. But I think I have with me now our first caller, Brianna. Let's see if we can connect her right now. Brianna, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
How you doing, Brianna?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. We're asking everybody the following questions. Why aren't people getting married anymore in today's society?
Yes, I believe that a lot of people, especially the youth nowadays, aren't really into the whole marriage idea and the concept because they've had experience with their parents or their grandparents. And now society nowadays says, well, if you love someone, you don't really have to necessarily have a certain commitment like marriage. You can, they're your person and you're theirs. So there's not really a need. That's what society has.
Now, Brianna, do you agree with that statement? For example, you said that, a lot of people nowadays, they're just okay with being partners. And shout out to Jada Smith, who likes getting into entanglements. But do you agree with that when people just are okay with calling each other partners and not taking the extra step to go forward?
Personally, I don't. I do believe in marriage. I do believe in that commitment because it's a fundamental, for a person and their spouse, and that shows like, okay, like they're thick and thin, they're better for worse. We're gonna be together. We're gonna have problems, yes, but we're gonna, resolve them, figure it out together. Because one of the things with marriage nowadays is that people don't want to get married. Because they don't want to have joint bank accounts, or they don't want to have things under both of their names, because at the end, what if I get a divorce, or what if this? So, it's always like also materialistic things that they don't necessarily want to give up as well.
Now, Ms. Brianna, are you married? Are you single? Are you, what's the situation looking like?
No, I'm single, Pastor.
You're not a player, you just crush a lot. What is it?
No, we're waiting, Pastor, patiently.
That's good. That's good. Brianna, have a good night. Thank you for speaking your mind, for sharing your opinion, okay?
Thank you, you as well.
Take care. Take care. You can send us a message now on WhatsApp, 437-233-9815, or call us right now, 877-785-8700. If you are right now next to your husband, next to your wife, you want to kind of let off some steam, you kind of want to speak about your relationship, or if you are, as we say in the U.S., single as a dollar bill and want to speak your mind about marriage, you can definitely do so. But I want to show you now why the rate of single men here in the U.S. has been declining. Single men who have been looking for dates has gone down. Let's take a look. We'll be right back.
Last week, I delved here into recent data from the CDC suggesting major problems with regard to the mental health of our adolescents, surges in depression and suicidal ideation, especially true for our girls. This week, I found cause to worry about young men. This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. The story reported that as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single. Now, look at these numbers. 34% of women, twice as many, a whopping 63% of men. What explains that? I pulled the Pew study and I read with interest. Turns out since 2019, the share of single men who say they're looking for dates or a relationship has declined from 61% to 50%. In 2018, 28% of men ages 18 to 30 reported they'd had no sex in the past year, compared with 18% of women of that age. The Hill report said men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. Among the causes, among the factors, a reliance on social media and online porn. But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying slightly older men, and heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Other troubling statistics about men come from a 2021 study from the Survey Center for American Life. They found the share of men who have 6 or more close friends, which in 1990 was 55%, by 2021 had shrunk by half. Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%. An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men. Quote, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Younger women are largely responsible for rising rates of mass shootings, a trend that some researchers link to their growing social isolation. Well, those words reminded me of a conversation that I had over a year ago right here on CNN with NYU professor Scott Galloway.
But the issue is when you have a group of men, the lower half of attractiveness of men and online dating, which has doubled, now it's about half of relationships, and the top 20% of men in terms of attractiveness get about 60% of the interest, you end up with a group of men that are more prone to conspiracy theory, more prone to misogynistic content, more prone to not believe in climate change. So this is the American story. If it's written with a pen whose ink is failing young men, does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
As always, Professor Galloway was prescient Back with me now is Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the host of the Professor G podcast and author of multiple best-selling books, most recently, Adrift, America in 100 Charts. And then, Scott, you toss in the influence of social media and how relationships today, they don't come from, in our era, happenstance and mingling, right? They come from swiping. And that further accelerates this issue. Am I right?
Oh, it's been the chaser to it. I mean, to have an honest conversation about this, we have to be honest, and that is that men and women have different mating criteria. One quarter of men saying economic viability is a key criteria to mate. 3/4 of women say that is important. And when you're on a two-dimensional format, where now it's 1 and 2 relationships begin online, it used to be 1 and 4 just a few years ago. It gets distilled down to a small number of criteria. Specifically for men, it's does she look attractive? And specifically for men, is he able to signal his ability to garner resources in the future? An average attractive male on Tinder gets swiped less than 1% of the time. And there's 3 men on Tinder for every 1 woman. So you've distilled it, you've taken out one of the key components of mating dynamics, and that is vibe, humor, body language, pheromones, the ability to be, quite frankly, a little bit persistent in the pursuit of a romantic relationship. We have no third places anymore, no places to meet. People aren't going to bars, they aren't sports league, they aren't going to church, they aren't even going to work. So it gets distilled down to very 1 or 2 dimensional attributes. And the reality is women are much choosier than men, and they can apply those screens and they allocate all of their attention to a small number of men that results in just essentially at the end of the day, a lack of opportunities. Chris Williams summarized it perfectly. He called it the high heels effect. In the last 40 years, more women have graduated from college than men, and they're not interested in mating with non-college grads. They now own more homes, single women than single men. So what you have is women say they won't date anyone shorter than them, 50% of them. Effectively, what you have metaphorically over the last 40 years is women have been getting taller and taller, and men have been getting shorter and shorter. How many of us have said, I know a ton of great single women, they can't find a date? That's not true. They can't find a date. They can't find a man they find economically or emotionally viable. If we don't make a massive investment in young people and make more economically and emotionally viable men, we're going to see a lack of household formation. We're going to see a decline in the middle class. And we're going to see, quite frankly, just a lot of young men who are terrible citizens.
And we're back with all of you, 877-785-8700 or through WhatsApp. 437-233-9815. Mrs. Audrey, do we have any more comments?
Yes, Pastor, we do. We have Michael that says like this: marriage at this point is out of the picture for me. Not even dating seems desirable. With economic uncertainty, job insecurity, and political instability, it's increasingly difficult to bear the burden of constantly pleasing another partner while you are barely getting by yourself and you're surviving at this point. Marriage is not in the cards for me. We have Bernard that says like this: in my opinion, the reason why marriages are dying is also the same reason as to why most relationships are failing or being kept at something less than serious and more open and casual. Because it's becoming harder and harder to pay for things, and that makes people end up focusing more and more on themselves rather than their partner, which is the most important in a relationship. We have our poll that you can go ahead and scan the QR code and join our poll. And one of the options that I noticed here is not on our poll, but maybe finances could be a reason as to why people nowadays are on the edge about marriage, about making this commitment. Because if I'm not mistaken, the first segment that we passed on today was about how much a wedding even costs nowadays. But again, let us know what you think and send us a message to our WhatsApp, 437-233-9815, and don't forget to join our poll.
Look, I'm not going to lie. I like to consider the fact that I had a really, really nice wedding, but you're crazy if you think I'm going to wear a tuxedo for a wedding once and not wear it again. There's no way. There's no way possible. But now that you brought up that option, did you get married because of, you know what I mean? Did you get married because of some benefits?
No, sir. I was actually always someone that looked forward to actually getting married. I have my parents as a great reference that they are happily married, and they were high school sweethearts. So it was something that I always aspired to have for myself as well. And I want to say that I'm happily married, and a shout out to my husband out there. Love you,
Oh.
babe. And
If only we had sound bites, or the little violin, no?
right.
Shout out to my wife, Miss Lupita. God bless you. Love, I'll be home in a little bit. But you can keep giving us a call, 877-785-8700. Now we want to go to the streets of Toronto, or as the Canadians love to say, Toronto. And we'll be right back with all of you.
Why do you think people struggle to get married today?
My opinion is that sometimes they don't meet the right person, and some of them, they do struggling with finances, and some of them trust, because you have to, in order to get married, you have to have the right person, and you both have to make sure this is the right thing that you want, because marriage is a very serious decision. If you're not serious, don't do it.
I think a couple of reasons why people are struggling. Firstly, a lot of people have gotten to the point where they enjoy their independence. They like being alone. For some people, trust issues, because these days you hardly find people who are trustworthy. So a lot of people are afraid of getting their hearts shattered. And I would also say that a lot of people have healing to do. A lot of people come from homes where they were traumatized and they don't want to experience such things again. So people tend to, I can't hurt myself, but someone else can hurt me. So I would rather stay alone than commit, because commitment is a big deal, and I think so.
As long as they have the financially stable job, because money is the luck of marriage. If you don't have money, problem will come.
In marriages today, I think it's based on communication, commitment, loyalty.
No, it's not for everybody, and marriage is not for everybody, because there's a lot of people at marriage, and the man didn't have the right woman, as well as the woman didn't have the right man.
Marriage is important because it's a blessing from God, and we must know that when we get married, we got blessed by God, and we taught to love your partner and to have a godly, beautiful family. And when you raise a child, you don't want the child to be like just go with the worldly stuff, but you want your child to be teach in a godly stuff. So that way that it can help, because right now this world is getting worse without knowing God.
From a believer point of view, everything starts from the family, right? So if the family is not right, everything in the society is not going to be right. So if you have a lot of divorce, and if, of course, if you have divorce, you're going to have kids who are brought up with some issues, emotional issues. So yeah, divorce should really be handled with more care, I would say. It shouldn't just increase like the way it is right now.
What would you tell somebody that they want to get married, but they don't know how to find the right person?
It's the right time from God. And you can't force people to, let's get married now, and later on you will have a lot of problem because you were not ready for that situation. Because in order to get married, you have to go to certain ways, or like financial, and a loving person, and be respectful, and be a family oriented, and most important is be a God's follower.
Do you think everybody has out there the right person for them?
I think there is someone out there for everyone, but it's not going to be that easy. Some people are so badly damaged that it's going to take maybe another really good or patient person to really get married to some individuals, because some people are entirely in their own world. But I believe that with prayer, because like I said, I'm a believer, with patience, you can find someone who will be willing to accommodate you just as much as you will also accommodate them.
They just see like problems are a way just to escape because they don't know how to solve the problem. So before you get into a relationship, invest in yourself, work on yourself as much as you can, because the longer the investment, the greater the reward.
You spoke about this last night in relation to relationships, and you said that when you commit to somebody, there is the inevitable pain that any future catastrophe is going to need to be worked out in a difficult way between you and the person that you've committed to, as opposed to you being able to go, oh, well, cool.
I'm out of here.
The side chicks are warm on Tinder in any case, I'm off.
Yeah, right. Well, that was something I really learned from reading Carl Jung. He thought about marriage as, he used alchemical symbolism as purification requires heat and pressure. And so you have a container and it gets hot. And that's when you want to leave. That's when the changes can take place. And sometimes they have to be radical to maintain the relationship. Very radical. But hopefully those radical changes are positive. But what makes you think you'd make them if there wasn't a fire lit under you? And one of the fires is, I can't escape from you. Here we are locked in combat, right? Here we are in this adversarial relationship.
Beneficial adversary.
Yeah, exactly. Beneficial adversary. Yeah. There's no out except through. And there's no evidence that through will work. And so that's part of the utility of the vow, is to turn the temperature up. And, you could say, well, I'll escape. But the problem with that is, escape to where? You're not going to have another relationship? And if, to the degree that you brought the catastrophe to the previous relationship, which is at least a 50-50 probability, right? What makes you think you're not going to bring it to the next relationship?
You're the common denominator between all of the
That's right.
experiences.
I've had many bad relationships. Like, really? I've never met anyone I can trust. Okay. Everyone's motivated by power. What's the common denominator here? Exactly. So, it's tricky because lots of people in my family have been divorced, which is the case in virtually every family. And I don't feel like I'm in a position to shake my finger at people and say, you failed, and with more effort, you could have succeeded. That's not up to me to decide. And many of those people have gone on to have more successful relationships the second time around. But that doesn't belie the initial point. And besides, even the people who went through a divorce wanted to get married again, they still see utility in the vow and the container. So, you can't make these things into inviolable absolutes. 0 divorce, 0 drugs, 0 climate change. No, that isn't how the world works. Partly because there's always a snake in the garden, right? There's no 0. Not without the application of increasingly totalitarian force. There has to be some leeway, but you don't blow the whole systems apart just to provide some leeway. It's a very difficult thing to negotiate. I've had clients who had partners that really couldn't be negotiated with. The whole idea of negotiation wasn't negotiable. And I didn't see they really had any choice to either maintain the millstone around their neck and drown or to leave. It's an awful choice, but that doesn't mean that marriage is a prison that no one should ever enter. It just means that things are complicated.
And we're back with all of you. And Mrs. Audrey, a full disclaimer, this person could be married, single, divorced, widowed, but we really do want to hear their opinion, because we know that especially somebody with experience can speak about marriage the same exact way you can speak about marriage, I can speak about marriage. And whether this person right now has a positive opinion about marriage, or maybe they have their own opinion about marriage, we want to hear from everybody. You can give us a text right now, 437-233-9815 or 877-785-8700.
Yes, Pastor, and I'd also like to share one that we have received from Colin that says like this. I think we often forget that marriages, like any relationship or friendship, is difficult. It needs to be continually worked on and nourished. It requires sacrifice, loyalty, and codependence. These days, we are led to believe that if we aren't happy, we just should get out of there. This is relevant to our jobs, our marriages, our families, our cities. The list goes on. There is no sense of responsibility anymore. We need to learn it's not about happiness, but our role to make our societies and communities a better place to live. And this is why I have taken a different perspective on getting married. I do believe that it is meant to be with the right person, but it always, like everything, will require sacrifice. And better way than as he has put it, right? It's sacrifice. You're gonna give some, you're gonna take away some. It's written in our vows, right? And it's something that commitment that maybe might scare someone, but I believe that when finding the right person, it's worth all of the sacrifice.
And the following question that we have for them: do you think marriage is dying? As we enter our second segment, we want you to pay attention, and we'll be right back with all of you.
There's been a general decline in marriage, but behind that general decline is a more interesting story. I think it's important we try to understand why people do get married in the first place. For some people, of course, it's a religious matter. It's a covenantal relationship. I think for many more people, there's an economic element to it. There's obviously the companionship and love. You fall in love and want to spend the rest of your life with someone. So there's a romantic element to marriage. And another reason was because they got pregnant. The so-called shotgun wedding. There was a sense that if you were bringing a new life into the world, that should be done within marriage. And there's probably a bit of status signaling too, sometimes, and this may be more true today than it was in the past, that being married is a way of signaling success and status within a society. And so there's a blend of reasons between religion, romance, economics, and status that have traditionally led people to the marital state. The old model of marriage was, for the woman, it was an economic necessity, particularly if she was going to have children, to be with a man who would be the provider. And obviously that has hugely changed now. And for the man, it was a way to attach himself to children. If he was going to have children, he had to do that with a woman. She was going to raise the children. But if she was doing that, he had to provide for them too. And so there was this complementarity to that traditional view of marriage, which of course was founded on a very deep inequality between men and women. That was a driving force of the women's movement, including people like Gloria Steinem, saying the point is to make marriage into a choice rather than a necessity, and to actually free women from the economic bondage, as they would have put it, of marriage. And that inequality is what's been successfully shattered gladly by the women's movement.
All of us must stand up together and say no more.
The very institution of marriage, which is central to human societies, has been fundamentally transformed. It's one engaged in very egalitarian principles. Women have huge exit power. I think it's important to know that women are twice as likely as men to file for divorce. So women are using exit power from marriage. They're not stuck in bad marriages anymore, which is a huge achievement for humanity. But for men, of course, the old role of, well, I'll just provide while you raise the kids, that's out of the window too. And so men's role in marriage and what it means to be marriageable, to use a slightly ugly term from social science, is very different now for men from what it was in the past. And women are looking for something much more than just a paycheck. It's a bit like the kaleidoscope has been shaken and the patterns haven't quite settled yet. You see lesbian and gay couples being able to opt into marriage. Within a couple of years of the Supreme Court decision, we saw 3 out of 5 lesbian and gay couples choosing to get married. You see a big class gap opening up, fewer working class and lower income Americans opting into the institution. What we have is what my colleague Isabel Sawhill calls one of the main class fractures in American society. No one expected that it was Americans with the most choice and the most economic power, and especially the American women with the most choice and economic power, who would be the ones who were continuing to get married and stay married. There's a very slight decline for those, say, with 4-year college degrees, but a really big decline for those with less education. The typical college-educated American woman is almost as likely to get married as her mother was, and if anything, a little bit more likely to stay married than her mother was. So there really hasn't been much of a decline in marriage at all in the top ranks of American society. Meanwhile, significant declines lower down. One of the other big changes has been a significant shift up in the age of first marriage, up to closer to 30 now. And I think about my parents who married at 21, having met at 17, pretty common. And actually as late as 1970, most women who went to college in the US, which was the minority, of course, but most of them were married within a year of graduating college. That's a world that's very difficult to fathom now, where both men and women are entering the labor market, they're becoming economically successful, they're establishing themselves. In some ways, you do all that first, then you marry. And so marriage has become more like the capstone Increasingly, marriage is a signal of everything that has led up to the ceremony, rather than the beginning of a journey. It's as much the end of a journey to a position where people feel they can get married now. We can't tell a single story about marriage in America anymore in the way we could just 40 years ago. We have to tell different stories based on class and race and geography. We've seen this real divide opening up in marriage in the US. Americans now are much less likely to see marriage as something that you have to do to be a complete person or have a good life. Only 1 in 10 Americans now believe that it's essential to be married to have a fulfilling life. That's a huge cultural change. I think what we can safely say is that the model of marriage that was founded on economic dependency of women on men is completely obsolete. Now I think we've created models of the family that are much more equal and much fairer, but maybe not quite as stable in many cases too. And the challenge we all face is to find ways to create more stability in our family life, but without sacrificing the goal of equality, which has animated the movement of the last 50 years. I think what we should be looking to is, how do we have strong relationships within which people can raise kids well? And if marriage has a part to play in that, then great. But there are alternative models around civil partnerships and so on too. What matters is parenting. What matters is how we raise our kids. And I do think that it's quite possible to imagine a renewed future for marriage based around egalitarianism between men and women, but a shared commitment to kids. But I think that's for us to create. If marriage is to survive, it will be in a new model, not a restoration of the old model.
And we're back with all of you. Ms. Audrey, I think we have the results of our poll, correct?
Yes, Pastor, we have the final results for the question that we've been asking everybody. Why aren't people getting married anymore? 15% they say obviously fear of commitment. 27% say too many bad examples that lead to divorce. And the majority, 58%, that say society values have changed, so not really a priority. There you have it, final results for our show.
And can we put the results back up on the screen, please? You said it was 52%? 58%. Let's see if we can put it back. So 58% said society values have changed. It's not really a priority. And, you know, I didn't make the poll, but I agree with that one also, according to this word. Because there are many values that have changed over the course of time. And that's something that we see with celebrities. That's something that we see very, very commonly within our families. But if it's something that the Word of God says, it says that when we hear the instruction to bind it around our neck, to hold it in our hearts. But as time goes by, there are a lot of people that they see marriage as more of a burden. They see marriage as more of a weight than a benefit. Now, we can stay here all night long speaking about the benefits of what marriage does and how marriage can help you, but when you see how society changes the view on that, it even corrupts what God has promised. I didn't get married because I wanted to be happy. I was already happy. And when I got married, my wife, who also was already happy, we were able to become one, so that back and forth, we were able to build each other up and show that relationships that truly are under God's protection are blessed marriages. And maybe you're watching us right now and you're somebody who, you have a bad relationship. You have a bad marriage. Maybe last night, your spouse left you. Maybe a couple nights ago, you broke up, you got divorced, you signed the divorce papers. Maybe you're in a constant battle over custody. But we want to show you that there is a way out. I want you now to pay attention to the story of Andrew and Tammy, who had a situation going on in their relationship. And when we come back, I want to pray for all of you who are married, separated, divorced, broken up. Maybe you even have a broken heart. We'll be right back with all of you.
These are results of faith.
My name is Tammy Adams.
My name is Andrew Adams.
I had a problem with, he also had a problem with commitment.
That we was just basically just friends with benefits. That's what you can call it.
When he saw me, he was just coming out of prison. I was aware of his background. I was aware of who he was because we've lived in the same community for many years and I'd known him already.
I wasn't really concentrating on the relationship. I was just really basically, as you could say, I was just in it to win it. I didn't know what a relationship was because I still had the young mentality in me.
In the beginning of the relationship, I was always the type that would be like insecure. I was always wondering where he was because he was like a type of flirtatious. With that, it was back and forth in the relationship. I would be angry at times because of my myself being lonely or insecure. And I also had 2 other children from a previous relationship before him. So he was there with me, helping me with my other 2. And when he wasn't, it made things worse.
She would go out with her friends, and some of her friends I really didn't approve of, but they was all my friends too, because we all grew up together. And so I kind of knew them. So I was thinking, if they're like that, my wife is like that. And it always run in my head of that whenever she's gone, whenever she's missing.
I remember a time where my boyfriend at the time was cheating on me. And I went out to the club, or whatever it was at the time, and someone called him and told him, because we're in the community where everybody knows everybody. Someone called him and told him I was there. So he left behind this new girlfriend and came there where I was. And I pushed him away. And when I did that, he just was very upset with me, angry. And I guess he went to call the girlfriend, and that really crushed. It really ruined the relationship. When I found out about the seminar, I was in the train station and I saw an ad in the paper about the seminar, the love therapy seminar. So that's when I brought it home and I showed it to my boyfriend, because I was wanting us to change. I wanted him to change as well, because I had already decided, but he didn't. And I told him that if he doesn't, want to work on this relationship, go to the seminar with me, or decide, make a decision, that I would be leaving.
When she put this challenge on me, and I had thought about it, and like she said at the time, we had a daughter. The biggest fear to me was my little daughter calling somebody else daddy. I didn't want her calling nobody else daddy but me. At first, I looked at it, okay, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna see what this is about. I'm not really into it. But then when I went, I heard some words that related to our relationship. And so with those words, I took them and I listened to them, and it made me a better man.
He started to volunteer, started going with me. He changed with his attitude. The people that he used to be around, he left them behind, and I saw that.
We start communicating together. We start making decisions together. And also, I got up, I was basically on the couch just all the time. Never wanted to do nothing. It's like she gave me my nudge. She gave me my push. And with that, I want to thank her for that, because I took that and never looked back. So, like, she's my rib. She's my rock. I want to say that. I just love her. I love her.
So when we learned going to the seminar, we would hear things like, we're both not supposed to be the same. So we knew that each one of us was different. And we had to look at, you know, the difference between him and me.
I want to say, like she said, never give up on your spouse. Always fight for your spouse. Together, work it out, and find a love therapy, because it really do help. I want to say that. Look what it did for us.
Prepare a glass of water or get closer to your television screen. At this moment, we will have a special prayer to your name.
In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I pray in this moment in favor of this married couple that watches us, that for so long has been suffering. For so long, they've had miscommunication, infidelity, problems going on that as much as they try to fix, they're not able to. People who now, my Lord, because of a bad relationship, they don't believe in love anymore. They don't believe that there's hope for them. People that because of certain traumas, they're still scared to get close to somebody else sentimentally. But my Lord, in Jesus' name, we determine that for this person who believes their marriage is restored, if there's any type of pride, any type of separation, division, anything, my Lord, that impedes this person from being happy in their marriage, that they be free. That this person who watches us, that has other problems, spiritual problems, that they be free right now. In Jesus Christ's name, you who listen to us right now, receive strength. Receive in this moment that strength that only God is capable of giving. And if you believe, so then you say, amen. Amen. Let us drink right now in Jesus' name. Amen. We are a safe haven for you who have any type of problem, marital problem, health problem, whatever it may be. And we're located here in Toronto, 2420 Dufferin Street. And we're on the corner of Bowie Avenue and about a block and a half from Eglinton Avenue. If you want to change, if you say, you know what, I don't want to suffer anymore, then this Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning, in our special gathering of faith and miracles, you have the utmost certainty that when you walk in, you won't be walking out the same exact way. If you want to put an end to this suffering, to these problems, then this Sunday at 10 o'clock is the place for you. All right. God bless all of you. Thank you for allowing us in your home. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Sunday of the Seven Prayers. In the gathering of faith and miracles, bringing restoration to health, prayer for your deliverance, to your love life, to your family, your financial life, for inner peace, and a real and true encounter with God. There are 7 prayers that will impact your life and destroy all your troubles, bringing new life in every way. Sunday of the Gathering of Faith and Miracles. Sunday at 10 a.m. 2420 Dufferin Street, 1 block north of Eglinton Avenue, and at every Universal Church in Canada.
Lift up my eyes to the hills, from does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel. Will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel. Will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. The Lord is my keeper. He's the